councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
In Dallas, Texas, 3 shots were fired at President Kennedy's motorcade in downtown Dallas. The first reports say that President Kennedy has been seriously wounded by this shooting.
It is a big idea, a new world order.
It was almost as if it were a planned implosion. It just pancaked.
Either you are with us or you are with the terrorists.
But I also believe that a lot of gun owners would agree that AK-47s belong in the hands of soldiers, not in the hands of criminals.
Guns will be taken, and no one will be able to be armed. We will take all guns.
For many of the police and guard troops, it is an uncomfortable job to do this in an American city.
Global governance at last. Is it one world? The central bankers in charge. But aren't we all just living and dying for what the central banks do?
As for me, give me liberty or give me death!
The answer to 1984 is 1776. Welcome to the InfoWars Nightly News. I'm David Knight. It's April 19th, 2013. 20 years to the day after the government burned the people at the Waco compound just north of where we are here in Austin. And we've got an interview coming up at the end of the show that we taped earlier with Mike McNulty. He's a documentary film producer who followed that story for over 10 years to put together evidence as it unfolded. But we can see the same sorts of things happening today in this story that's happening with the Boston Marathon. You see elements of deception, of changing stories, of lies that have been uncovered. It took a very long time before we understood exactly what happened in Waco, and we're going to talk to Mike McNulty about that. But we see the same pattern developing here. We also see people, the way the media is manipulating this is exactly the same way that it happened 20 years ago. So stick around and take a look at this interview that we've got coming up, but we're going to cover some of the stories right now. Alex was on earlier and telling us about some breaking news. As it appears right now, one of the suspects is surrounded by the police in Boston, and we're getting some police transmitters that we're following live that say things like burn him out, but that's still developing, and so that's why we're going live, just in case something like that happens. But right now, at this very moment, we have a lockdown in Boston, essentially martial law. Was it declared? No. They did not declare martial law. We don't have wars declared in this country anymore, and they don't declare martial law when they have it either. What they do is they call it a lockdown, you know, kind of like what happens in schools when something bad happens in schools. And as we see, schools condition children to accept certain things and certain conditions and certain treatment and behavior. And the American public is being conditioned to accept gradually a police state. And we're seeing this unfold in an unprecedented amount of coverage for one 19-year-old individual. Now, certainly it was a heinous crime, but the amount of people and the militarization of the police is just astonishing. As we had a caller call into the radio show earlier, he was saying, and we have some photographs of that, some video, they're actually taking people out of their homes and relocating them to other places as they go through their homes and inspect those homes. Just amazing. And where is the Fourth Amendment in all of this? We've seen this type of pattern before. Our founders of our country saw this type of pattern. That's why we have the Fourth Amendment. That's why we have guarantees of due process that everyone who accepts a position with the government, whether it is a position of law enforcement or whether it's a political position, they all swear allegiance to the Constitution. They are swearing not to do the very things that you're seeing done right now in this video. There's no taxis being allowed. Everyone is shut down. There's pictures elsewhere. You'll see the streets of Boston look like a ghost town because they're looking for one person. Now, we've been covering the pictures that they've had press conferences with the FBI. They've had press conferences with Janet Napolitano, and they tell you, don't look at those pictures. Take all of your information from us. And they don't want you to see the different pictures that are out on the internet. There's a picture of one of the suspects from earlier tonight, actually this morning. We had a picture of someone who looked like he was under arrest, but then the names changed. We were told that they were arrested, then we were told that they were killed. So at this moment, there's a lot of confusion as to what's coming out, but we're getting very rapidly modifying and changing stories. And one of the things that we're trying to track down is we're looking at there's a fellow right there in a khaki pants uniform and dark jerseys. This is the type of uniform, as Alex pointed out, and as we showed you at the Kraft website, thecraft.com, that's Kraft International. That's the security consultant firm that was formed by Chris Kyle, who was just recently died, and former Navy SEALs. As someone called earlier and told us, they don't typically provide security service. What they typically do is provide security training. And so that also brings up the question of, was there a drill going on there? As we know, in London, in the 7/7 bombings, there was actually a security analyst who went live on television, and you can see that on YouTube, saying, well, we were hired as consultants to do a training analysis and a session, and it was going on at exactly the same time, exactly the same place. There you see the Navy SEAL insignia that we've seen, and that's at the Kraft, and those are, we saw those pictures on the caps of some of the people that were there at the site. And if you go to the Kraft, you'll see uniforms that look very much like the pictures that we've put on InfoWars. But as we were told on 7/7, the guy actually went live on television and said he was astonished that it was happening at the same time as the actual bombing raid, that the scenario was exactly identical, the timing was identical, the place was identical. And that is a real hallmark for a false flag operation. And as Alex just pointed out, a false flag can be the government itself doing it, or they can be running provocateurs who do it. The point is that they have knowledge of it, they offer cover for it, and they use it to transform society. And we were told immediately after this happened that this was going to be a transformational event for America like September 11th. And if you look at what's going on in the city of Boston right now, it does look like America has been transformed into a police state for a manhunt of one 19-year-old individual. Now, if we look at this article that we have coming up here, National Guard weapons of mass destruction teams are on hand in Boston yesterday. There are pictures of individuals who have CST on their back. That's, if we can go to that next picture there, not those individuals there. Those individuals are the ones that we were showing you. But in this article and a subsequent article, there were actually pictures of civil support teams. And these are teams, that's the picture I'm talking about right there. Now, they don't have backpacks on. They have something strapped to their thigh. And on their back, they are clearly labeled CST teams. And those are teams that are looking for weapons of mass destruction. And we are told that they are routinely at large events. But what we saw was something that was a bit different. What we saw were people wearing similar clothing, except they had backpacks and they had a hat that looked like the Navy SEAL type Punisher type of logo. Also, there is the Nuke Safe Portable Guardian backpack. If you could pull that up, we'll take a look at that. That is a backpack, perhaps that was what some of these guys are wearing. It's a portable radiation detection system available as a backpack, and you can see there that it's got a kind of a remote control device down at the bottom. And there was that one picture of a fellow who was outfitted in the khaki pants and the black shirt, and he also had a backpack, and he had a device that looked like it may have been something similar to this. We don't know for sure. But as we look at the backpacks, one thing that comes to mind that I've thought about is the initial pictures that we were shown of the backpacks that the bombs came out of. They were black backpacks with distinctive gray striping on them. Now, when they fingered the two suspects that they're currently after, especially the younger one who is now at large, his backpack was actually a gray backpack. There's the device that we were talking about earlier. His backpack was actually a gray backpack. And when we're talking about the media losing its objectivity, losing its skepticism about what the government is telling us, and checking out what the government is telling us to be sure that it's true, we've gone exactly the opposite direction. CNN, after it was pointed out that one of the backpacks was gray and not even black, came up with what I like to call their Matryoshka theory of backpack bombs. You know, the Matryoshka is these little wooden Russian dolls that are split in half, and there's you open it up and there's a smaller one inside, and then inside of that there's a smaller one inside of that, and so forth and so on. You can stack them up. They actually pulled up and they said, well, it could have been something like this. We could have had a light-colored backpack, and inside of that could have been a dark-colored backpack, and inside of that could have been a bomb. And it's like, why is CNN doing plausibility coverage for the police story? I mean, if it's a backpack that doesn't match the description, why don't they just leave it at that and say that an explanation is forthcoming? But instead, they actually go through and create a cover story, essentially, to try to make sense of something that doesn't really fit the descriptions. Now, along that line, we have a story at InfoWars that when we try to post the story that we have written about suspicious men wearing backpacks, and you see the picture there, it is being blocked by Facebook. Facebook is blocking. We are told that the actual link has now been blocked. When we try to put it up, it says the content you are trying to share includes a link that has been blocked for being spammy or unsafe. Now, there's nothing spammy or unsafe about that unless unsafe includes something that doesn't fit the government's constructed narrative. Very suspicious that Facebook is now blocking information about these individuals that we first pointed out. Now, the end of the bombing suspects is very skeptical as well. She says, show us the evidence. I'm suspicious that this was staged. She said, I am a lawyer, and there are 4 of us in the family. Her name is Merit Tsarnaev, if we're pronouncing the last name correctly. She lives in Toronto. She says, I can't lightly accept this kind of accusations without supporting evidence. Forgive me, but I cannot. Could it be staged? I have to question everything. That's my nature. That should be the nature of reporters. Reporters should be questioning this instead of trying to explain away anything that sounds fishy or implausible in the government's official story. But instead, time and time again, we see that these possible perpetrators wind up being shot. So there is never a trial. There's never any discovery of the evidence. But let's go to that clip right now. We have the aunt talking about this earlier.
For me to be convinced that these 2 nephews of mine committed these kind of atrocities cannot be taken lightly. And I found it strange. Tamerlan is walking in the front, Jahar is in the back. Why wouldn't they come together? Just, together as brothers, as I used to know them. So then are you suspicious that maybe they really did do this? No, I'm suspicious that this was staged. The picture was staged. By who? Whoever needs this. But why would whoever is looking for those who need to be blamed for these attacks. So you think they're being set up by someone else, not the authorities? You think they're being set up by someone else? What do you mean, someone else? Well, who is setting? Who is interested in this case? When you're blowing up people and you want to bring attention to something for some purpose, you do that mass.
Very good point. What is the motive of this? Why haven't they claimed responsibility for this? Why would Chechens do this? We're not told. Any more than why would some right-wing terrorist, as a Southern Poverty Law Center would say, why would they do something like that? There's not really any motivation for why they would do it. We know that the government has a motivation for having something like this happen. We know that they have been equipping for a police state. They've been changing the fundamental laws of this country. They've been incrementally moving towards this date and this technique for a long time. Let's take another look at the mother. Has a press conference also, I believe.
No, my son would never do this. My son, it is a set up. He was controlled by FBI like for 5 years. They knew what my son was doing. They knew what actions and what the sites on the internet he was going. They used to come home. They used to come and talk to me. They used to tell me that that they are controlling his. They were telling me that he's a really a serious leader, and they are afraid of him. They told me that whatever whatever computer site or whatever is there, whatever information he's getting, they are controlling him. So how could this happen?
So So there's a lot of unanswered questions, and it's going to bear some investigation to take a look at this. But don't expect that CNN or Fox News or CBS or NBC or MSNBC are really going to investigate this. They're going to give you the official government line. The investigations are going to come from the alternative news sites like InfoWars. It's going to come from documentarians like Mike McNulty. That's where we're going to find out the truth. But we can see the pattern of behavior, just as we saw with Waco 20 years ago. And unfortunately, as I mentioned when we have the interview, when this happened 20 years ago, I was seeing people who were very, very unsympathetic, absolutely no compassion for the Branch Davidians, who did not care that they were not given any reasonable due process. And now we see some of those same groups. We see evangelical Christians now being attacked and listed as enemies by Lieutenant Colonel Rich, Frank Rich, I believe is his name, listing the American Family Association, the Family Research Council, as being hate groups, putting them in the same category as terrorist groups. And if you don't stand up for other people's rights because you don't like those people, because like this lady that we just heard, they have a strange foreign accent, if you will not stand for due process for others, you will not get it yourself. And we're seeing that coming home now.
Hi, Ted Anderson, president of Midas Resources. With over 30 years of experience in the precious metals business, I can tell you without a doubt, we are facing the most dangerous and volatile times, not just in the United States, but worldwide. Peace of mind is gold and silver. Now is the time to invest in gold. When it comes to bullion coins, our prices are competitive and the closest to melt. If it's numismatics you're looking for, we have some of the best deals out there. Visit MidasResources.com today or go to Infowars.com and click on the link to see our daily specials. Here's an example of one of our long-term specials we've been offering for more than a year. 2 silver dollars from the turn of the last century, plus 2 powerful films, The Obama Deception and The American Dream. We also add in the book Dishonest Money, all for $72 and free shipping. The most trusted name in precious metals is Midas Resources. Call 1-800-686-2237 or go to Infowars.com. I'm Ted Anderson with Midas Resources.
We are now only entering the edge of a global financial superstorm, the likes of which the planet has never seen. Here in the United States, the private Federal Reserve is giving more than $85 billion of taxpayer money a month to themselves and other offshore foreign banks. And the worst part is, we have to pay the bank's interest on the money we give them. There is now a race between the global central bank mafia cartels to see who can devalue their country's currencies the fastest. We are already seeing big increases in inflation at the grocery store and the gas line. This will eventually lead to hyperinflation. More than a dozen top globalists like George Soros have been buying record amounts of gold while at the same time bad-mouthing it to the public. Don't just listen to what they say. Watch what they do. For more than 6,000 years of recorded human history, gold has been the ultimate hedge against uncertain times and inflation. Before investing in metals, it is important to do your own research and find a reputable company. Midas Resources has the highest Better Business Bureau rating of an A+. Unfortunately, very few precious metal companies can boast that. Midas Resources has assembled one of the most educated, researched, and professional teams of brokers in the industry. The evidence is overwhelming. In uncertain times, gold and silver is safe harbor. Now is the time to invest in gold. Call 800-686-2237 and Midas Resources will mail you 10 reasons to own gold absolutely free. No shipping. It's absolutely free. And finally, Ted Anderson wants to challenge you to find any deal that comes close to his 2 silver dollars at cost with free shipping with 2 free films and a book for $72. That's more than $160 value for $72 shipping included. Click the link at Infowars.com to go to the MidasResources.com specials page. Brought to you by MidasResources.com and Ted Anderson, the trusted name in precious metals.